somewhere in your 30s or 40s, it starts. Quietly, without permission, the life you worked so hard to build is finally standing. The career, the family, the plans that came true, more or less. And instead of arrival, you feel something you can't explain. A flatness, a restlessness, a strange grief you have no right to. Questions you thought were settled begin to stir. Is this it? Is this me? What was all of this actually for? We have a dismissive name for this. We call it a midlife crisis. We joke about sports cars, and we wait for it to pass. Carl Jung saw it completely differently, and he saw it perhaps more clearly than anyone before or since. To Jung, what happens in the middle of life is not a breakdown and not a joke. It is one of the most important thresholds a human being ever crosses. The moment the psyche demands a different kind of life. By the end of this, you'll understand what is actually happening to you in these years, why the old rules quietly stopped working, and what the second half of life is really asking of you. Stay with me, because what feels like falling apart may be the beginning of becoming whole. Jung's central insight is deceptively simple. Life is not one continuous project. It has two halves, and they have different purposes, almost different laws. The first half of life is for building. Its task is to construct a self that can survive in the world, an identity, a career, a reputation, relationships, security. It is a season of expansion, outward, upward, acquiring, achieving, becoming somebody. And this is right. Jung never mocked ambition. The morning of life is supposed to be spent this way. But here's the turn. That project has a natural end. At some point, often between the mid-30s and the 50s, the building is essentially done. The identity exists. The place in the world is won or settled. And the psyche, having finished the morning's work, begins to ask a new question. Not, how do I build a life? But what is this life for? The unease you feel in these years is often exactly this. The morning's question has been answered, and the afternoon's question has arrived, and nobody ever taught you it was coming. Notice that everything in our culture prepares you for the morning. School, ambition, career ladders, family building. We have endless maps for the ascent. For the afternoon, almost nothing. No one hands you a guide at 40 that says, the rules change here. So when the change arrives, people assume something has gone wrong with them personally, when in truth, they've simply crossed into territory nobody mapped. Why this matters? You are not malfunctioning. You are on schedule. And this is why the strategies that carried you this far begin mysteriously to fail. More achievement, more acquisition, more optimization, the entire toolkit of the first half starts returning less and less. The promotion lands and the feeling lasts a week. The next milestone arrives and something in you barely looks up. You conclude that you need bigger goals, and the bigger goals feel emptier still. Jung was precise about why. The values of the morning, he taught, cannot govern the afternoon. What was true and vital in life's first half, expansion, accumulation, proving yourself, becomes in the second half a kind of lie. Not because it was wrong, but because its work is finished. You are using morning tools on an afternoon task, and the psyche knows it before you do. Think of Marcus, who responded to the flatness of his mid-40s the only way he knew, by doing more of what had always worked. A bigger role, a harder push, a new venture. Each one bought a few weeks of aliveness, then left him flatter than before because he was trying to answer a question of meaning with the currency of achievement. Why this matters now, if doubling down on what used to work is making things worse, that is not failure. That is the signal that the season has changed. Here is the reframe that changes everything about these years. What we call the midlife crisis, Jung understood as a summons. The restlessness, the questioning, the sudden strangeness of your own life. These are not signs that something is breaking. They are the psyche's announcement that the second half has different work for you, and it will not let you sleep through the transition. The discomfort is the invitation. Think of Elena, who woke one morning at 43 inside a life she had executed flawlessly and felt like an actress on a set. Nothing was wrong, and that was precisely what frightened her. If nothing was wrong, why did everything feel so unreal? She assumed she was losing her grip. She was, in Jung's terms, right on time. The self she had built for the world was complete, and the deeper self underneath it was beginning to demand its turn. If this is already naming something you've been living, take a second to subscribe. There's a new piece of the inner life here each week. Now, the deeper layer, because Jung's point is exactly that. The first half builds the ego, the capable, adapted, successful self. The second half belongs to the self, the larger, truer wholeness underneath, which includes everything the building years left out. And the transition between them rarely feels like growth at first. It feels like loss. There's a reason for that, and it helps to know it. The ego spent decades believing it was the whole show, that its goals were life's goals, that its victories were the point. The afternoon quietly demotes it, not destroys, demotes, from owner to instrument, from the point of the story to a character within a larger one. And the ego experiences that demotion, at first, as dying. The flatness, the unreality, the is this it? Much of it is simply the old center of gravity losing its throne before the new one is felt. What comes after isn't smaller, but between thrones, everything can feel like nothing. And this is the heart of the afternoon's work. Everything you set aside to build the first half of your life, it did not disappear. It waited. The creativity you shelved to be practical, the tenderness you hid to be strong, the questions you silenced to stay on track, the parts of you that didn't fit the person you needed to become. Jung believed the second half of life is when all of it comes back, not as nostalgia, but as demand. The unlived life wants in. This is why midlife so often arrives with a strange grief. You are not only questioning the life you built, you are mourning the lives you didn't. Every real choice in the first half closed other doors. The person you married meant the people you didn't. The path you took meant the paths abandoned. And midlife is when the psyche finally presents the bill for all that necessary closing. This mourning isn't a malfunction. It's the honest cost of having actually lived a first half, and it deserves to be felt rather than outrun. And the temptation is to treat that grief as the enemy, to distract it, outrun it, or numb it back to sleep. But the grief is a doorway. Under it lies everything that still wants to be lived. And unlike in your 20s, you now have the strength, the depth, and the honesty to live it. Elena, from earlier, found this in the strangest place. Sorting old boxes, she came across notebooks from her 20s, full of a voice she barely recognized as hers. Curious, unguarded, alive. She had shelved that writer to become someone reliable. And sitting on the floor with those pages, the grief hit her. Not for the life she had, which was good, but for the self she had postponed indefinitely. That grief became the turning point, not away from her life, back toward the parts of herself she'd left out of it. Jung insisted that the afternoon of life has its own meaning, that it cannot be, in his words, only a pitiful appendage to life's morning. The second half is not the long decline after the peak. It is the part the peak was for. Why this matters? What is stirring in you is not regret trying to torture you. It is life asking to be finished. And there's an honest warning here too, because Jung saw what happens when the call is refused. The person who spends the afternoon clinging to the morning, chasing youth, repeating the old formula louder, refusing the inward turn, doesn't stay young. They grow rigid, bitter, or strangely hollow, performing a self that expired years ago. The stakes of this threshold are real. What is being offered is a second, deeper life. What is risked in refusing it is spending decades as a caretaker of a finished project. What then does the afternoon actually ask? Jung's answer: a turning. The first half of life points outward, toward the world, achievement, the opinions of others. The second half turns inward, toward meaning, depth, and the slow work he called individuation, becoming at last who you actually are, beneath who you had to be. In practice, the turn looks quiet, caring less about applause and more about truth, trading some breadth for depth, choosing, sometimes for the first time, on the basis of meaning rather than momentum, asking not what's next on the ladder, but what would make these years matter. The world may barely notice the shift. You will notice everything, letting go of images you've outgrown, the invulnerable one, the endlessly agreeable one, the one who was always fine, giving the neglected parts their turn, the creative work, the honest conversations, the questions of meaning you postponed for 30 years. Practically, it can begin absurdly small. One protected hour for the thing that has no career value and won't die. One conversation held at the true depth instead of the safe one. One honest inventory. What did I set aside to become who I am? And which of those postponements has quietly become permanent without my consent? The afternoon rarely starts with a grand exit. It starts with a small act of loyalty to the person underneath the resume, and it deepens through honesty. The afternoon runs on a different fuel than the morning. The morning ran on adaptation, reading the room, meeting expectations, being what the moment required. The afternoon runs on truth. What do I actually believe, want, grieve, love, now that there's no audience left worth performing for? Every honest answer, even a small one, is a step across the threshold. Every performance kept up out of habit is a step back into a morning that has already ended. None of this requires burning your life down. Jung's afternoon is not about abandoning your responsibilities. It's about inhabiting them differently, from a deeper place, for truer reasons. Marcus, in the end, didn't quit everything. He stopped using work as an anesthetic, took the questions seriously, and slowly rebuilt his days around what actually mattered to him. Some of it new, most of it simply his at last. The outer life changed less than he expected. The inner one changed completely. Something else tends to happen in this turn quietly. The center of gravity shifts from getting to giving. The first half asks, what can I build for myself? The second begins to ask, what can I hand on? What grows through me now? Depth, mentorship, craft, honesty, presence. The afternoon's forms of wealth. People who make the turn often describe an unexpected result. Life gets simpler on the outside and much larger on the inside, as if the years ahead had suddenly acquired a point. That is what Jung meant by the afternoon having its own significance. Not a consolation prize, a different sun. It's worth saying plainly, Jung thought the second half was not the lesser half, but the point of the whole arc. The part where a person can finally become whole rather than merely successful. The first half builds the vessel. The second half decides what it will carry. Seen that way, the strange weather of your 30s and 40s stops being an embarrassment to hide and becomes what it actually is, the beginning of the most important work you will ever do. Here is the question to sit with tonight. If the restlessness you feel is not a crisis, but a call, if the first half of your life is genuinely complete, what is the second half asking you to finally live? Tell me in the comments. What stirred in you as you listened? What part of your unlived life has been knocking? I read every reply. And if this reframed something you've been carrying, subscribe and stay close. We're walking the road of becoming ourselves together, one honest piece at a time. Because the afternoon of your life was never meant to be a slow fading of the morning. It has its own light, and it is asking now to be lived.